As we gaze across today's spiritual landscape, a unique and difficult migratory movement can be detected, percolating beneath the surface. Minor changes are made every day in the way in which people view the world, but there are some embarking on a spiritual migration that could very well tear them away from the fabric of everything they've ever known. A glimpse of this kind of emotional experience can be felt here at a modern international terminal that acts as a point of transition for immigrants entering America for the first time, looking for a better life. Imagine the complex emotions felt by such people more than a century ago, who flocked to this new world promising hope and freedom, and yet bore the loss and pain in leaving their homeland behind. Another type of immigration, a spiritual one, carries the same emotional freight, and it begins here, in the hearts of those who belong to the Mormon Church. Today, many who were once part of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints are migrating away from their religious homeland of Mormonism in search of a new land. For the Mormon whose entire way of life has been woven into the fabric of their LDS Church, the fears and obstacles they face in leaving are unprecedented. Even so, every day, people all over the world are transitioning out of Mormonism.
Mormons believe in free will. We do believe in agency. We love everybody.
I do have friends and other acquaintances that have been affiliated with the church and are no longer affiliated with it.
I think we just continue on being with friendship.
To the extent that I can understand that better, where they're coming from and their perspective, then I feel like my own understanding of my own belief is strengthened.
I'd prefer that, a Mormon stays a Mormon, but if somebody's going to the Baptist faith or the Muslim faith, they're a better person because of it. Choice is a fundamental principle of Mormonism.
If that means leaving the LDS Church, and finding a different path, I feel like, okay, as long as they're still believing in Christ.
I was feeling a lot of pain and guilt while I was there.
I was the prima donna in my church, I guess you could say, of following the strict moral codes and whatnot.
And the more that I've been separating myself from it and analyzing where are those painful feelings, where are those guilty feelings coming from, and recognizing that that's someone else's opinion of why I should be feeling guilty.
I would ask questions and answers were trivial. They weren't very deep, and it was, if it's not in the set standard we get from the booklet that we're told to tell people, then we really don't know what to do.
Well, I didn't necessarily disconnect from the faith aspect of it. I still believe in, the gospel and the scriptures and things like that. What I don't believe in is the social construct.
If you went outside the box and thought on your own, I got the feeling that I was not worth a whole lot.
I want to be LDS. I just want to be who I am as an LDS person, and I want to be able to be that and be happy with that, and I don't want to have to deal with, people trying to put me in some kind of a box.
I found that people have a whole bunch of different experiences within Mormonism, and a lot of times their experience within Mormonism puts them on a certain pathway as they leave Mormonism. If they were merely a cultural Mormon and didn't have a strong sense of reality of Scripture, of God's presence, they might then move into a secular path. There's others who want to have a spiritual life, some kind of spiritual reality, but they don't trust authority. And so they want to then become their own authority and pick and choose for themselves, and will gravitate towards spiritual paths that are more amenable to sort of the individual authority and conscience.
So when I was faced with seeking out answers that were outside of what I had been told, it was very painful, because growing up 17 years with this belief system and then realizing it doesn't satisfy everything, it makes you question. And even now I'm still dealing with some of the bitterness towards that whole process of rediscovering myself without the church.
I went through the experience of really attacking and having a lot of like, I don't like the church at all. This is not me. I'm not the church. But then coming kind of full circle on some things, honesty, love. I think the idea of Christ is fantastic, and that's something that I'm still very much into.
I'm very happy with where I'm at spiritually, and now I can accept that part, that aspect of my life of growing up as that was great for then. I don't really advocate persuading one person one way or another other than to just look inside themselves and trust what they feel.
I'll go to a family Christmas party and take a seat next to my grandpa, and he knows where I am, but he won't talk about it. And I want to talk about where I am, but he doesn't want to hear it.
It was really hard for my mom, who's very much a member of the church, to kind of see that and accept that, but the whole idea of her love kind of helped us through understanding each other.
My mom passed away 3 years ago, but she was a convert to the church, and she was like, you know what, I'm just going to be me and I'm going to live the gospel. And I watched how the gospel and the scriptures and the commandments and things like that, I watched her change and become a better person. So I think despite all the stuff that's going on, that's what kind of keeps me going, is the fact that Christ does love you, and it really is about what he thinks, not what anybody else thinks, and we need to remember that.
Wherever you find yourself on your spiritual migration away from the LDS religion, you ought to be commended for your courage. We understand that the journey out is emotionally complex and that it is difficult to navigate your way through the fond memories as well as the struggles and doubts that linger from your past. The emotional trauma of leaving behind your religious homeland, and with it your identity and social network, is a reality. But you don't have to face that reality alone. You can be encouraged to know that others have gone before. You can find hope and strength in knowing that you are not alone.
One of the fondest memories that I have growing up LDS was just the friendships that we had.
I loved being LDS. It was the core of my existence.
I couldn't even imagine not being Mormon. And if I wouldn't have been Mormon, I would have just joined right up just to hang out with friends.
Joseph Smith was a huge hero of mine, and the way he was presented to me in the books and stories, and who wouldn't be fascinated by him. I loved to attend the temple. I felt a real peace there.
It helped me, kind of have an identity. It wasn't just me against the world. I had this group.
And it wasn't necessarily that I thought of myself as really elite. It's just that it was an underlying current.
I was a very successful missionary for the church, probably converted 30, 40 people. Our mission led the world from convert baptisms in 1962.
Growing up, my dad hardly ever went to church, and then my parents divorced when I was 10, so we were always pretty low on the Mormon society totem pole.
There was this plan of salvation, pre-existence, and then we come here, and then we go somewhere else, and so it was all laid out. Didn't have to really be too responsible for, for just living. It was kind of a secure feeling.
The eternal progression that they speak of, and I'm going here and here and here, and there is a sense of who I am.
You're taught a lot of morals. It's really more of a moral religion, and do right and do good and be good, and so to me, if I'm going to be honest and real and have integrity, how can I not pursue and question?
What I found was that I wasn't alone. There were thousands upon thousands of people asking these same questions, some leaving, some not. And I found out there was tons of underground people who were in the church afraid to leave, but who found a forum to ask these questions on the internet, because there's no forum for that in the church. You don't question in the church. And that gave me encouragement.
the land that I was living in, there had to have been more. There had to have been something more. My desire to know what that more was would propelled me.
The tipping point was desperation. There were no rites, rituals, actions, temple attendances, obediences, service, prayers, fasting. Nothing gave me solace. Nothing gave me peace in my heart, and I was in turmoil.
My dad one day said, "Doesn't it make you feel good to be where you were supposed to be?" while we were walking home from church. And the more I've thought of that, and I thought, no, I just want to get church over with. Church was just, that wasn't praise and worship to me. That was just going to sit somewhere to do what I was supposed to do to keep the peace.
I'm anything but anti-Mormon. My genesis into looking closely at the Mormon doctrine has been simply a search for Jesus Christ. We came to worship auxiliaries and so on. We came to worship our history. We sang songs to our founder. At the end of that was the question, is Jesus really here? And that was my tipping point.
The four foundational vision, the Book of Abraham, the Book of Mormon, I did a rather thorough study of where all this material came from in the text. It turns out to be 19th century material. Here I'm an institute teacher teaching for the LDS Church, and I am conflicted in a major, major way.
Everything became a big question, and back then, I put it this way, God just became really flaky, and I couldn't trust who this God was.
I had been prepared my whole life to go out on a mission, and you see the missionaries, and you think, wow, they're amazing, and that's the way people view you, and you realize, nothing's changed. I'm still just Greg, and I started to really struggle with not feeling like I measured up, and even though I was trying my hardest.
And I started, reading the Book of Mormon, really paying attention, just trying to prove to myself that, look, this is true, this is the way to go. You need to get back into this and start trying again. And in that process of trying to prove to myself that it was true, ended up doing the exact opposite.
It seemed like you go to church and find out all the reasons you're going to go to hell, and if you're not going to hell for this or that, you're going to hell for what you're missing out on. I didn't feel I wanted to be a part of it, but yet I still believed in the doctrine, I never lost my faith in God.
I just wanted to know His will in my life, not my neighbors, not my friends, not the church. And that's all I prayed the whole time, was just to know Him. It sounds ludicrous and like I've lost my mind, but this voice came and just said, it's time to leave, Suzanne.
I finally just reached a point where I said, I can't do this anymore. And I filed my letter of resignation.
Part of that is freeing. Part of that is, am I anybody special?
When I hear people talking about, when a loved one dies and, the grief process, you go into mourning. I think I went through mourning, a lot of anger and
God put it in us to have our parents bring us up. And when you find yourself pretty much at the end of being programmed for life, and that all changes, it's like having the carpet ripped out from underneath you.
I think for me, it was just resigning myself that I was gonna go to hell.
So it was actually a state of turmoil and despair that led me to totally throw everything I knew to the wind and say, God, show me. Give me some truth that I can stand on.
I just kind of felt like I'd been left hanging. Sweet little mom would say, what are you going to do? How are your girls going to be raised without going to church, right?
The only God I understood or even knew about was the God of the Mormon Church. And so I wanted to get as far away from that as possible. And so in my heart, I was searching for anything else.
I mean, I read everything. New Age, maybe it's Buddhist, maybe it's a little Zen, Maybe, that whole agnostic thing too. Yeah, there's a God, but everything's good. Everyone's good. It's all good.
I wasn't compelled to replace it with anything. In fact, I thought this was as close to God as there was.
I was spiritual. I was a spiritual person in connection with God. I loved Him, but I didn't want to affiliate with a group of people, a sense of community elsewhere.
I stopped believing in God altogether. I just absolutely did not believe in God. I was angry with Him. I took a long walk one night in the moonlight. It was a full moon. I will never forget this night. And cursing my ex-husband and cursing God. But I never stopped believing in Jesus.
When people leave Mormonism, they pursue many religious options. Many times, this includes rejecting a belief in God altogether. Although running away from God may seem to make sense at the moment, many exiting Mormons have found that when they stepped away from the institutional LDS Church, God was still there, as was their desire to follow Christ, even in a new context. The courage that drove them away is the same courage that drove them toward Jesus Christ as they wrestled with a multitude of emotions and questions. They found that God's grace and God's love remained with them throughout their difficult migration.
Yeah, it's painful, but I think it's worth it. Some people just think truth's more important than loyalty to tradition, and some people are more inquisitive than fearful. I guess I'm one of those people.
Frankly, I'd be so comfortable and I'd be so happy to go back to the LDS Church. I can't. But I wish I could, because I'm comfortable there. And so, new things that I have to learn, yeah, they're a little uncomfortable right now.
In one of those moments of thinking about it, feeling guilty, I thought to myself, well, who's my faith in? Is my faith in the church, or is it in God? Do you trust God enough to lead you where He wants you to go, even if it means that the church isn't true? And I said, yes, I trust God.
When we experience God, therefore God is God, and praise God. And what the other thing does when we experience God, therefore the church is true, that connects us to church, not to God.
But when I took off the housing of the church, well, God was still there. So I felt a lot of relief in thinking, wow, this is a lot freer.
My relationship to Jesus and who He was, heart-wise, never changed. But leaving the Mormon Church took off the many, many cloaks that disguised Him.
It's like the first time a kid tastes sugar, I think. It was like, whoa, that's all I want to eat. I can figure, that's kind of what it was. It's like, all I want to do is know this God.
And it was just really, really comforting when I became firm in my belief of grace, that weight on my shoulders just was gone.
In the dream, I was walking down the sidewalk of a suburban neighborhood, and the further I went, the darker it became. And I finally turned the corner, and it was pitch black. I could not see anything. And I remember saying in this dream, how do I find my way? And as soon as I said that, behind me, I could see this very bright light, and I turned around, and 6 feet away was the Lord Jesus Christ. And He was in an attitude of embracing me, and He said, I am the way.
One morning, I was just laying there, and I started crying, for Jesus. And I just cried out for Him. No one had ever taught me that.
because a person's coming out of a homeland, and their homeland has defined everything about them. It's defined how they think about the world, their values, their customs, all of their stories, and all of their heritage and their identity. And as they settle into, if an immigrant settling into a new land doesn't have to repudiate all of that, but they're going to have to learn how things work in this new home that they've come to live in.
I certainly don't believe that a total extraction from your old culture in order to move into a new religious culture, shall we say, is necessary. But in the case of Mormonism, there is much to appreciate and celebrate and retain of the old cultural ways.
I mean, I'm still Mormon. I mean, not doctrinal, but I grew up that. I know those people are my people. They were. I don't know how to separate. It's like saying I'm German and I come over to America and now I'm American because I'm in America. There's things that I brought with me.
Making the jump from being an ex-Mormon to being a Christian just kind of came through an exploration of, okay, so I can't identify myself by what I'm not, but what am I? I was a Mormon and those beliefs are still in the back of my head and keep popping up occasionally, but that I've moved past that and I've come to a higher, better belief, and I am a Christian. I'm not a Mormon.
Today, I look at myself and my identity no longer as LDS. Today, I am a follower of the way. I am a follower of Jesus Christ.
I have found that being a Christian is not being a religion. It's having this relationship, this open dialogue with other believers and with God himself.
I would counsel maybe a good long season if you're new to the world of traditional Christianity, of just listening carefully. It's a lot like an immigrant coming into a culture, moving to another country and having to learn the language. There is quite a bit of that really does need to happen.
When our friends come out of the LDS Church, and it depends how quickly they're coming out, but for the most part, they're still grieving. And they need to recognize that they're grieving, and there needs to be time and space. For most of them, they're leaving entire social networks, their established close friends, relatives, and they're ostracized and alienated.
And it's difficult for different people in different ways. But one of the things I've seen that probably happens with anyone who is seeking and trying to find where they belong, where truth is, they tend to beat themselves up. They tend to be hard on themselves, feel a lot of guilt and a lot of insecurity. I would tell them to walk very slowly, and to give themselves a lot of grace through the transition. Pray often, and let God direct you each step of the way. Don't make ultimate decisions quickly.
We simply want you just to come and be loved and receive that love and to grow and be nurtured in that love.
And I guess my thing is don't give up on God. Invite him into your life.
It's okay that you were here once, you completely bolted the other way, and now you're coming back, but you're coming back in a different angle.
But if you're one to be more curious than frightened, if you're one to value truth over loyalty to your tradition, then I think you should have the courage of your convictions and let the Lord guide you.
And say, open my eyes, open my ears, and help me see your truth. I will accept your truth, whatever it may be, but open me up so I can know your truth.
What I would want to say to myself, that searching self of mine, is don't be afraid. It takes a lot of courage to step out of this complete community that is within the LDS culture.
I can't tell you the amount of people who are in the church who don't believe it, that continue to stay there out of fear. And if you haven't done that, you've beat fear, and that is really cool. That's a really cool deal. It's a big step. And so the next step would be find God. Look at the Bible again.
There are other people that are going through this, and there's life outside this little Mormon culture.
It's okay to have conversations that make you mad, make you frustrated. It's not Satan, that's telling you you're bad, you really shouldn't be here. And it's okay to feel all those things.
I would believe it's important for you to follow up on that doubt. And I would search out information that's going to help you see that those inclinations you're having towards questioning are valid, that you're not just losing your testimony, or you're not just a sinner who can't keep the Mormon way of living.
God is not about religion. So I didn't have to throw God out with the LDS Church. And I know individuals who have left the LDS Church who have done so.
It's this trust thing, and I want to tell my dad, just trust, Dad. Just trust Jesus. I don't know how to say it. You can, all this stuff that's made you comfortable the whole time has nothing to do with Jesus.
God is faithful, and He pursues us, and He meets us where we're at. That concept is God. He meets us where we're at. He died on the cross and came to us.